This is the third episode of a three-part series that we're doing that refers to pioneering your own path. We get into the whole subject of career pathing. In this particular segment, we're going to talk a whole lot about that third leg of your journey where your schooling, your internships, the first 10 to 15 years of your career, you've picked up a ton of tools, experiences. You've started to get really clear on your passion. The next question gets down into how do you want to apply yourself? How do you want to apply everything that you've learned? How do you want to leverage the relationships that you've built along the way? And ultimately, what type of significance do you want to have? Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm Dwayne Abels, founder and president of Pioneer IQ. I hope over the course of the next several minutes, you're able to pick something up that helps you understand how significantly our industry needs you. You're able to better design and maybe navigate your own career, or if you're an emerging leader with a bunch of talent, giving you some insights on how to help somebody else get some clarity around what their great potential is and send them down a path that maximizes their potential, ultimately contributing to you and the greater good of what our industry is all about. Here to join me is Chris. Chris, it's been a journey today. We started out, like we mentioned in the second episode, of this being just a one episode shoot. We got into it and wow, there's just so much that I feel like our industry is really needing to hear, and you hit on a lot of great subjects. So we've turned it into a three-part series. So I appreciate Arp Sling's help and your patience, but hopefully you're getting a lot out of this. So if you haven't listened to the previous two segments, I would really urge you to. In the first segment, we get really heavily into the early parts of a career, even down into high school, college, internships, what to look for, how to design a good internship for people. The second segment gets all into that first 10 to 15 years of your career, what you should learn, what you need to be looking for, what's really important outside of just work-life balance and a paycheck. And then this segment, Chris, I'm excited to get into what is that you're doing now? How has everything you've learned kind of going into what you're doing now at J.E. Dunn? And at the bigger picture, I'd be interested to hear from you. Do you feel significant, and what significance do you feel like what you're doing at J.E. Dunn's actually having on our world? So I'm excited to hear that.
Well, I appreciate that. So it's for everybody that's been along on this journey so far, it's like, how did we get here? How do we go from design over to construction and this opportunity? We were talking before, I was leading the architecture practice for H&TB. Which is a big E, little a, big engineering, focused primarily on transportation engineering, but also had a robust architecture practice that included sports and aviation. We had grown to probably about 220 people in 6 different studios across the country, and was a really growing, great practice and opportunity. But I've been in that role for about 7 years, I would say, in that national leader role. And I was looking at what's next for me, and had great support from the leadership at that firm, great opportunities. And they were looking at, could I go help not just lead a part of a practice, but could I go to lead one of their divisions? Basically, was what the career path was for me. But it was. And I was on that trajectory at about the time that I started to have a conversation with J.E. Dunn. So I mentioned a project that led me back there that J.E. Dunn was building. The leaders that were on that project had grown up to become leaders within the J.E. Dunn, and I had kept a relationship with Paul Neidline, who had been the Kansas City office lead. I had known him when he was at Turner Construction before he came to J.E. Dunn. Yeah. He was a Kansas City lead and then a Midwest president. We were collaborating on a pursuit of a couple of projects here in Kansas City. Yeah. And kind of grew our relationship to a point of we would get together quarterly for a happy hour, comparing some of those notes. Again, the importance of that network of people that you know outside of your own organization that really help you to navigate the opportunities and what you're hearing in a market in order to make the business decisions around a practice. He was a great friend and great resource, and we could also bounce things off of each other. we were wrapping up one of those happy hours about 4 years ago, and he said, "Hey, before we take off," he said, "Would you ever consider doing something different than what you're doing right now?" And I was like, "No, I feel like I'm on a pretty good path." And so we started this conversation around what you had alluded to earlier, which was a vision that the executive leadership team and Gordon Lansford, our CEO, had around how do we differentiate ourselves from our competition, and how do we really achieve the vision of what we want as an organization. And that meant if we were going to be trusted partners with our clients and build community, we needed to reach out and be part of that, and that included the design community. And Paul started to articulate, hey, here's what we're looking at. We have this as a strategic objective to incorporate design and be a better partner to the designers that we're working with, but we really haven't found the leadership. We've been trying to do it while everybody else is hair and fire and doing other things, and we really need somebody that can come in and provide a vision, eat, sleep, and breathe this to help lead it. And he said, your name has come up in those conversations, and I was incredibly flattered for one that I would be included in that conversation, and that he would reach out to say, "Hey, think about it. Here's an opportunity to do something different." Fast forward, we went through a long period of discussion. I talked to a lot of people at J. Dunn because it was giving up a really good career path that I was on, and I had built an incredibly good team that I really was proud of and where we were going. And just like I had to walk away from my own business, which is like not even a job. It's like one of your kids,
right?
Basically. I felt like that on steroids where I was before. But the more that we talked about what the impact could be, and learning this side of the business, which I referred to earlier as between the contractor and the architect, it's checks and balances, and it's the dark side. It's not. It's you do enough design build and you do integrated projects together, and you understand we're all trying to solve these problems together, and it's better off if we can build that from a place of trust and collaboration rather than always second guessing and one over the other. It's a unified project team. I said, I might really, again, got to that point of I might really regret if I don't take this opportunity. It could be a way to grow me and employ a lot of the tools that I had picked up in that toolbox and the relationships that I had to try to do something different that would make a different impact. That I knew at the very least, if I wasn't the right fit or it wasn't the right fit for me, I would learn so much about this side of the business, and I would grow my relationships with people that I really respected in the industry. Ultimately, I decided it was worth taking that leap. I talked to a lot of people that were in kind of my network and my personal board of directors. It's one of the things that I know you and I have talked about. You build those relationships with people that know your entire career, that you can go to when these opportunities come, and they have a stake in you, not in what your career is or where it's going, but what is the right fit for you. Talked to a lot of those people that said, J. Dunn's an incredible place. People don't leave. They grow their careers. It's a 100-year-old company that has a really good culture. If you're going to try this, do it there. And it was a way that I could explore something different without going to a competitor that we had on the design side, because I felt like I would let all of those people down. Oh, great, he went to a competitor, what does that mean?
Right.
There was respect within my team on the design side of J.E. Dunn, and it's like, okay, he's going to somebody that we can collaborate with, not that we're competing with. And so I had a lot of support where I wasn't building those bridges. So it was an incredible opportunity to do that. Since I've gotten here, we've grown a team. We've got about 22 people in our group over the course of about 3.5 years. We are focused on design management, where we are the liaison between the external design teams that we're working with and our operators and our teams internally. And we're bridging that communication gap between what our superintendents, what our PXs, our PMs need versus what I know a design team needs for decisions from an owner, and trying to bridge that gap and reduce the friction that's there and make it a more collaborative team to drive better results and a better experience. And then there's a portion that we're doing, which is some of the in-house design where it makes sense. Sometimes we partner with one of those design firms. They do the initial design, and then we're the architect of record. And so it's a collaboration. Sometimes we do the whole thing, if that makes sense. Sometimes we don't do any of it because our owner has a really great designer to work with.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in a position now with what our group focuses on where we are all about adding value to a project team. It's an incredibly rewarding place to be. We want to, where we can help a project, where we can solve problems, where we can lead, where we can be communicators, where we can add that additional value, not just to our J.E. Dunn team, but in really thinking about the owners and the delivery of the project. That's what we're focused on. That's where we get brought in. And so it's a building practice. We're growing, we're learning along the way, we're figuring out and meeting our organization and our teams where they're at, but the feedback has been incredibly positive, and it's exciting. I get to touch all of the projects that a $6 to $7 billion company is building, and that's a variety of design that I never thought I would touch, which before it was more narrow markets that we had expertise in. At a builder like J.E. Dunn, we do everything. And so that part has grown me professionally. But it's really what it's come down to are the people and the team that we're building. I've learned in my career journey, and we started talking about this, a little bit of the ego of like, oh, you know what projects I work on. You saw it on they played a Super Bowl at that stadium. Yes, there's that cachet, but you get beyond that pretty quickly. What I remember is less about what those projects are, more about the people that I worked with on those projects.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's about building those people and building that team that's important, and doing that here and doing it in a place that genuinely puts people first. Has been a really rewarding way to build a practice. It's been an exciting part of this stage of my career and the impact that we can make in the industry.
I love it. So in summary, thanks for telling that part of your story. In summary, I think there's some things that you've just communicated that's really important for us to point out. Number one, you agreed to take on a role that's literally disrupting 150 years of how our industry is operated, right? And you're choosing to bring a new option. You're leading a new option for J.E. Dunn, but through that effort, J.E. Dunn's bringing a new option to the world, right? And what I think is interesting about that is your journey has provided you with a lot of tools that you've picked up along the way. And what's interesting about your story is that the men and women who have influenced you along the way, in my opinion, have built up your confidence enough to where you're confident enough in yourself and your team to be able to disrupt a really intimidating industry. And I think that's really awesome and admirable. So I appreciate you saying that. So if you're an existing leader, I want to use this as an opportunity to help you understand something really critical. I get this question almost more often than any other question. Dwayne, how do I recruit top talent? You just heard from Chris his entire journey. If you didn't listen to episode 1 and 2, I'd really encourage you to go back to that. But here's the answer in a nutshell using Chris's story. What it takes to recruit top talent is, number one, you have to have inspiring leaders. And you mentioned Paul, you mentioned Gordon, you mentioned a few other people that were inspiring in terms of you considering J.E. Dunn opportunity. The second thing that you have to have is an inspiring vision that helps people understand how significant the organization is to the world, not just how successful the organization is, right? And so that gets into the third piece, which is seeing someone's potential, right? While you're out on that big project, Paul and other leaders started to see your potential, and they spoke into you, and they spoke a vision into you that maybe didn't necessarily align with what you were thinking at the time, but between their inspiring personalities, their bigger vision for the organization, and their ability to connect you to it, got you to this place. Wouldn't you agree?
Seeing the potential in people. So one of the things that we didn't talk about, I went from being hands-on design when I started my career, and then when I had my own practice, to at the very end, when I was on the design side, I was managing the business.
Yeah.
And I was living vicariously through the designers. I would go to presentation prep and go to a pinup and look over a shoulder and see design, but I wasn't drawing anything.
Yeah.
But what I came to was what was fun for me was getting to know the people, build the team, seeing the potential in somebody that they hadn't seen in themselves yet. And so identifying, hey, this up and coming person is going to be the next leader for this interiors group, before she ever even saw that, and then putting her in a place to be successful. It's understanding and seeing where they can go, and then providing those opportunities. That's what the leaders here did with me. And when they brought me in, my role here at J. Dunn was very undefined. There was strategic goals of what we were doing, but it was very entrepreneurial, that I fell back on, okay, I've started my own firm. I've built that practice. I'm going to use some of that skill set, but do it in a place that has all of the resources and support and top level vision for where that was going to be. And it married those two things together. But what got me here was they saw something in me and presented an opportunity and that vision that was something that resonated with me, because I'd done it with my people and building my team too.
Yeah, love that. Hey, Chris, thank you so much. Thank you for spending a half a day with us and articulating your entire journey. Thank you for dumping some of the gold nuggets that you've experienced along your journey into our laps and allowing us to run with it. I'm really grateful for that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so if you are an emerging leader, I want to challenge you. If your career does not sound like Chris's, if you feel like you're stuck, if you're restless, if you feel like there's a whole lot more and you're not doing anything about it, I would urge you today, do not go to bed until you take a step to change your situation. You are worth way more than being stuck. There are a ton of people, maybe in your existing firm, but for sure in other firms, that need someone who is willing to do something unique, different, and focus on their significance, not just their work-life balance and paycheck. If you are an existing leader and you have a ton of talent underneath you, we've literally given you the blueprint through my direct comments and Chris's stories on what it takes to actually attract and develop top talent. They may not look like top talent when they're sitting there in front of you, but it's your responsibility to invest time in them and to build them and focus on them with the same level of tenacity and focus that you use when you're building a building. If we focus on the mindset shift to develop people to build buildings and not use people to build buildings, then our entire industry gets better, your team gets better, and if you're a profit-driven person, you make more money. For most of us, that's not the bottom line, but I know for some of us it is. It's a win-win-win all the way around. But it takes one thing, courage, and our industry needs a whole lot of it. We also need you. Lead on.